Hello, my name is Joon Chung, and I currently serve as councilwoman in Harrington Park. Today, I have the great privilege to speak with Governor Phil Murphy about some of the concerns that the readers of 맘앤아이 and the viewers of Hello Bergen have as he's seeking re-election on this election day. 안녕하십니까? 저는 오늘 진행을 맡은 해링턴 파크 시의원 준청입니다. 오늘 맘앤아이 스튜디오에 아주 특별한 분을 초대했는데요. 11월 2일 본선거에서 뉴저지 주지사로 재선에 도전하는 민주당의 필 머피 후보를 줌으로 연결해 만나보겠습니다. 필 머피 주지사님 안녕하십니까? 먼저 맘앤아이 독자와 헬로버겐 시청자들께 인사 부탁드립니다.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Governor.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
You must be so crazy busy right now, and we are amazed that you are spending your time with us.
I'm honored to do so. This is a very important organization, and the Korean community is an important community in our state.
Governor, honor is all ours, so we are very grateful for your time. So, Governor, my name is Joon Chung, and I currently serve as councilwoman in Harrington Park. Today, I have the great privilege to speak with you about some of the concerns that the readers and the viewers of 맘앤아이 and Hello Bergen have as you are seeking re-election on this election day. I would like to thank you for taking this time to speak with us. I have a list of questions for you, and I would like to start with the following. So the first question is, when COVID-19 first became an issue in the US, it put undeserving hate and strain on a lot of Asian Americans and consequently their small businesses. What actions can they take to reestablish businesses in the aftermath?
June, it's good to be with you, and thank you so much for having me on. There's really two parts to this answer. One is very specific to the Asian community, and by the way, we've got one of the fastest growing Asian communities, AAPI communities of any state in America, with a big Korean population, with its sort of biggest base in Bergen County. So for all those reasons, I'm very happy to be with you, and I'm glad you asked. So the specific Asian community is there was a lot of hatred and us versus them behavior. So we've used law enforcement, we've used my bully pulpit. We've had the backs of the community since day one, and we always will have the backs. So that's completely and utterly unacceptable. The broader question about small businesses, including the Asian American small businesses, we've put almost $800 million to work for small businesses. Only California and New York have done more. We'll continue to do that. We started a program a few weeks ago called Return and Earn, which is money for the employee to come to work at a small business, but also money for the small business to train the employee. That's a program we like. We're piloting that. And our incentives package that I signed in January has a lot of Main Street small business and startup aspects to it. And we've never needed that more than we need it now, particularly recovering from the COVID-19 health crisis.
That's great. Thank you, Governor. Continuing on the topics of COVID and Asian hate, how can the government handle these issues in terms of police involvement and mental health care?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, on the former, we will use the fullest extent of the law to prosecute anyone who acts in a hateful way toward the Asian community or any community for that matter. But as you rightfully point out, with the pandemic, there was an enormous amount of bad behavior directed at our Asian brothers and sisters. So we will use, and I think we've got really good, relative to any other American state, it's not perfect, but really good engagement and relations between law enforcement on the one hand and the communities they serve on the other hand, including up in Bergen County, whether it's the county sheriff, whether it's the local police departments or the state police. I think the relations are really, really good. And then secondly, we need to use the bully pulpit effectively to push back in words from people like myself, senior elected folks. Words aren't the only thing that matter here, but words do matter. To make statements from the highest levels, including the president, who I think has been outstanding on this front, to make sure folks realize that certain behavior is completely and utterly unacceptable. And I commit to everybody, I will continue to do just that. You mentioned mental health. I didn't answer that part. We know the stresses have been overwhelming. And I don't have the numbers here. I'll get my office to get you some phone numbers and websites for free counseling that maybe you could flash on the screen at some point. But there are a lot of resources available, both by the state, by local officials, as well as by non-governmental actors. And I'll get my colleague to get you numbers and websites for people to call up, including folks who will answer those calls in multiple languages.
Thank you so much for that helpful information, Governor. The next question, education is very important within the Korean American community. I've seen that you've taken steps to invest in education within New Jersey. Could you tell our viewers about what you've been doing so far and how you plan to get New Jersey back on track after over a year of virtual learning?
Yeah, great question. So I should say to the members of the Korean community in New Jersey, I'm deeply aware of the commitment to education, and I'm deeply aware of the culture. I myself lived in Asia for several years and made numerous trips to Korea, to South Korea on business. It's a country I love. And I saw firsthand in South Korea the emphasis on education. So we're funding education at all-time record highs. We have the #1 public education system in America, which we're incredibly proud of. But as you rightfully point out, we've had a lot of learning loss and mental health challenges from the pandemic. So we've put an enormous amount of resources directed at learning loss and at mental health for both our kids and our educators and staff. It will depend on the district that you're in and the level of school that you're in terms of how those monies are actually deployed with the resources, whether it's after school, summer programs, professional development for educators, whatever it might be. But we are completely committed to making sure that we address that learning loss as strongly as we can.
Wonderful. Governor, next question is that while we are on the topic of education, let's address the possibility of mandating AAPI history to be included in K-12 school curriculum. Knowing there are approximately 1 million AAPI members in New Jersey, how would you make the New Jersey public school curriculum more inclusive for the AAPI community members and also bring multicultural competence into the curriculum?
These are all great questions. I'm very open to teaching the history and legacy of the AAPI community and nations in our public schools. That's something that you should consider me very much open-minded to. Listen, we're the most diverse state in America. It must be that the history that is taught, the educators who teach, the entire approach has to reflect that same diversity. So I think in making sure that we have the appropriate representation of the AAPI community among our educators is another big step. And that we are in a good shape relative to other American states, but we're not yet where we could be. And I hope we can get there. And we are not just the most diverse state, we're the most international state. We're the most curious. Our kids take foreign languages at a higher level than any other state in America. And that says something about the curiosity and the open-mindedness and the international flavor of our state. So all of that is great. And I want us to see us do even more than we're doing.
Wonderful, Governor. That's so encouraging to hear your commitment to the education for AAPI community. Governor, another question is that one of your big issues as governor has been healthcare reformation. Could you tell us about the Cover All Kids initiative and what steps are you taking to make sure adults have similar access to healthcare?
Yeah, so I will answer all of that. Cover All Kids initiative, which was in this year's budget, is a game changer. It basically mandates that every kid in our state has healthcare coverage, which, by the way, is a right, not a privilege. It should be that way in our country, but I'm proud that it's that way in our state. More broadly, I'm incredibly proud that we have formed our own healthcare exchange in New Jersey. So the Trump administration at the time kept shrinking its commitment to affordable healthcare. We said, you know what, we're not going to send any more money to Washington. We're going to build our own exchange. And we've taken some of the premiums and driven it right toward families that otherwise could not afford healthcare. And it's made it more affordable and more accessible to more folks. Those are both game changers. I won't quit until it's a right for everybody. The last part of your question is a good one. It should be for kids for sure, but we should all have that guaranteed right. I think that needs to be done at the federal level, but we'll do everything we can to close any of those gaps here in New Jersey.
Thank you, Governor. One of the last questions that we have for you is one component of your campaign surrounds the topic of gun safety. Could you tell us a little about the objective and how do you handle those who obtain girls illegally?
Yeah, so there's good news and bad news, June, on this one. The good news is New Jersey's got the strongest gun safety laws of any American state. I want to make them even stronger. There's a package of bills that I hope we get to in the lame duck period called Gun Safety Package 3.0. So that's good news. And we have among the lowest gun crime and crime states, period, of any state in America as a result. The bad news is we're not an island. 85% of the crime guns that are confiscated in New Jersey have come in from out of state. And so we desperately need, now listen, we coordinate with our neighbors, and that's a good thing. I formed something called States for Gun Safety, which has been very effective. But it's not enough. It's necessary, but not sufficient. So we need federal legislation on gun safety in Congress signed by the president. Things like universal background checks, which are overwhelmingly supported by Americans of both political parties. That would be a really smart and helpful thing to do to help us make New Jersey even safer than it is.
Thank you so much for your candid answers. And Governor, do you have any last word for our readers and viewers before we close?
Just to say, June, it's great to be with you, and thank you for serving in public office. Thank you for having me in this interview. And I just want to reiterate how important the AAPI community is in New Jersey, and the Korean community specifically is in New Jersey. And lastly, regardless of who you vote for, I hope you vote for me, folks, but please vote. By the time this is airing, we'll be well into early in-person voting for the first time in our state's history. And then election day is on November 2nd. Make sure everybody votes, folks. That's the sacred core of our democracy. And let's make sure everybody exercises that right.
Yes, indeed. Governor, once again, it's been an honor to speak with you, to learn more about your work and your future plans. I can't thank you enough for your presence here today, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me, June. Take care.
Thank you, Governor.